I always ask this question. We used to say rather conveniently that dictatorships produce wars and democracies produce peace. I tend to generally agree with that. But sometimes I ask this question, why is it that some of these criminals who are beheading innocent human beings in Syria and Iraq speak English and French with native accents? Were they the products of dictatorships in our region? Or were they the products of so-called liberal democracies? What went wrong? Can we not engage in a serious dialogue about human rights? Human rights that produces extremists in our region? What produces extremists in your region? Can we, in fact, engage in a serious discussion? Now, I believe every country, as a teacher of human rights, I've been teaching human rights since 1988. So as somebody who agrees with universal values that are reflected in human rights, and we believe that some of these universal values emanated from our Islamic culture, which 1400 years ago called for equality, of accepting domination from another being. 1400 years ago, لا تكن عبد غيرك فقد جعلك الله حرا. Don't be the slave of anybody because God created you free. So this is the culture that comes from our part of the world. Can we engage in a serious discussion about how we can, in fact, manage our societies in order to produce less of this problem? Now, everybody can improve their human rights situation, but we need to address the human rights in their totality. I believe the worst enemy of human rights defenders and those who protect human rights is the political manipulation of human rights for gains. Let me give you one specific example. For 10 years, 8, President Saddam Hussein of Iraq instructed his delegation to vote in the United Nations in favor of resolutions condemning Iran for violations of human rights. Nothing against him because he was the sweetheart. He was using chemical weapons against us. Nobody cared. You go search UN books. I was there all the time. So I can challenge you to go and search every UN compendium of resolutions. Until August 1990, not a single negative reference to Iraqi violations of human rights. And in 1990, when a Dutch special representative was appointed to investigate human rights in Iraq, the next year he produced a report that Saddam Hussein is the worst violator of human rights. What happened all of a sudden? I mean, from somebody who the United Nations has said nothing about his human rights violations to somebody who became all of a sudden the worst violator of human rights. Of course, violations of territorial integrity of Kuwait and occupation of Kuwait was a crime. But that was not the reason he was a despot and violated the rights of his own people. Actually, the way he violated the rights of his own people brought him to do what he did against Kuwait. So I think the worst enemy of human rights is using human rights for political gains. I don't want to name names, but please go and see who voted in our region in favor of the resolution that Sweden presented to the Human Rights Council against Iran. And you'll be ashamed because you didn't produce a resolution against them. So how we go about this is to make human rights a subject that deals with actual human integrity, human respect, And then you'll see all of us can make gains. All of us can improve. In Iran, we have many deficiencies. Actually, it's good that the people of Iran can discuss these deficiencies and then can go to the ballot box. And in spite of whatever people say, produce an election outcome that was predicted to be otherwise by all the pundits. We have proven the pundits to be wrong again and again and again, and people continue to make the same predictions. That this guy, because he's the favorite of this group, will be the next president of Iran, will be the next parliament member of Iran. And each time they're proven wrong. I think we need to engage in a debate about what went wrong. What do we need to do here in our region? What is needed to be done in Europe? What are the impacts of alienation? I asked the question first, and I don't pretend to have the answer, but I have some indications that a person who views his values to be attacked with impunity, I reject anti-Semitism wholeheartedly, and I pay the price for it. But somebody who says anything against Jewish people who are represented in the Iranian parliament and are a respected minority in Iran becomes an anti-Semite. Anybody who says anything about somebody from Africa becomes a racist. But anybody who says anything about Islam is exercising his freedom of expression. How can you answer to a Muslim living in our part of the world or in Europe that you are fair game? Be insulted, that your values can be insulted. And then you expect some demagogues to come, give them a perverted ideology that is financed by money from some of your allies, and expect them not to be interested. I think you've got to look for answers in a dialogue. I'm ready to engage in a dialogue with Europe on human rights, but I have told Federica Mogherini that it will be a two-way dialogue. I won't like what some of the things that I'll hear, and you will certainly not like some of the things that you will hear. But we need to be serious and engage in that dialogue. But believe me, it will be a dialogue. It won't be a monologue.